Before the dawn of time, before the creation of things seen and unseen, the Lord God was. The Lord God consisted of three in one, known as the Godhead. He fashioned his throne upon the sea of glass, brilliant beyond imagining. He fashioned a chariot of wheels within wheels of enormous and dreadful size, to which his throne sat upon. With the kingdoms of heaven completed, the Lord God prepared himself to speak into being its inhabitants. God said, "Let us create the heavenly beings as spirits, just as we are. They shall be called our servants, and they shall be called the angels."
What's that?
What were you expecting? A body? Bodies are boring. I've had loads of them. That's not what my tomb is for.
But what is the light? It's beautiful.
Shall I destroy it?
Shut up, Strax. Doctor, explain, what is that?
The tracks of my tears.
Less poetry, Doctor. Just tell them.
Time travel is damage. It's like a tear in the fabric of reality. That is the scar tissue of my journey through the universe. My path through time and space.
In the beginning there was nothing, the primordial void. Then from within the nothingness there was the Word, and the Word was, "Let there be light." And so it was, and the Lord looked back upon what he had done and said, "It is good."
Maybe when the thought that's like wanderers in the fourth dimension. There are some qualities of the universe which are meant for us. Absolutely fantastic.
My own personal time tunnel.
The demonic community is more or less a large extended family-type hierarchical-type system. Most trace their roots back to the original 200 angels that were assigned to Lucifer before his fall from heaven. Except that the 7 original angels of the rebellion and the 9 fallen angels of the war against heaven are 2 separate issues and divisions of the highest-ranking demons. You have Lucifer, Azazel, Samael, Malach, Nastan, Astaroth, Cherubus and Asmodeus being the 7 rebel angels, and then you have Samjazel, Kunchniel, Saquiel, Azrael, Turiel, Zachiel, Sarel, Samael and Azazel as the 9 warring angels' lead generals. These 9 angels lead the war against heaven that began in Megiddo around the time following the flood of Noah's tale and ended with the war and fall of Jericho that wiped out most of the demonic armies and busted the path to heaven and hell, trapping what armies were still here. The war trickled down into the mortal world after that, with the fleeing and surviving demonic warlords taking up refuge behind the Mesopotamian gods and the armies of the archangels taking up the guise of man through the orders of Pegedian Magi at that time. After hunting down their survivors, the war halted to an end for a while with the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, where it is said that God fell in a climatic battle with the forces of Baal and the Leviathan. The Leviathan was beaten later in the war of Jericho by Michael, who sacrificed himself by luring and casting him into the bottomless pit along with himself, and sealed himself behind the 9 seals of the sages or archangels around the region of the Pardashwani temple in India.
Then the Lord said that they were his greatest creations, for one day he would come from among them and mold a part of himself from their wisdom. Then there was a murmur among the angels. They asked what makes them so unique, and the Lord said, I shall make them in the likeness of myself, and give to them free will, the ability to think and choose in what to believe in and do. I shall impart a small portion of myself within them, the divine spark, so that they can flourish and become wise, so that they will reach their highest possible potential. To do this I shall one day send my Son, who shall go down there to live among them. He comes from the light within me, therefore he is of the light, and thus a part of me, and so thus he is my Son. And you did pass this light unto me to give to Mary, which in those split seconds, your light and my grace collided, giving life to the light, which is the light-born man within him, which was connected to me, and that's what drew me to being incarnated into his era during my coma. Remember the war with the warring angels after the flood. So I've learned, he obviously is willing to go to extreme limits to prove a point. Not only did he bear forth a son to be sacrificed upon the altar of the world's scrutiny, but more than that, he transitioned himself into that son, came to earth in the flesh as one of us to live a life and experience the human condition with us, laugh like us, hunger and feel sadness like us, and then one day die as one of us. All for the sake of proving a point as far as we are allowed to know about it. What I'm trying to say is this. Just because you may have experienced a tragedy, and when you expected God to be there to bail you out, and he wasn't there, doesn't mean he doesn't exist, only that you expected him to be somewhere, when that is the one thing he must avoid doing, because there are greedy, selfish power mongers out there who only see a chance to gain power to command others when they contemplate his existence.
And Ophanim. God created the 6-winged seraphim, who are fiery, powerful beings reserved as the cleansing agents of God. He created 16-winged and higher-ranking 24-winged cherubim. The 24-winged cherubs shield themselves with their additional wings while in the presence of the Most High, for if they did not, they would be consumed like flaming fire. They stand on the sea of glass below the throne, and fly in the great hall singing and shouting praises. Amongst these angels the Lord appointed 4 to be paired with each wheeled Ophanim that supported the throne. Their appearance is like burning coals in a fire, and their bodies crackle with thunderous sound. He set them in rank, file, and order, The ministering angels were placed under the Ophanim. Over the Ophanim he appointed the 16 winged cherubim. Over these 16 winged cherubim he appointed the seraphim, and over the seraphim he appointed the 24 winged cherubs. Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel would later become known as the 4 beasts who stand in the presence. He also created Samyaza, Arachivel, Remiel, Kokabeel, Tamiel, Ramiel, Danel, Ezekiel, Brachiel, Azazel, Amarsal, Vitariel, Ananiel, Zachiel, Samsapiel, Saturel, Terrell, Jamjael, and Suriel. These are they who would soon become counted amongst the sons of darkness, those that would soon fall from grace following their first in rank in rebellion. The Lord had created all of the angels except for one whom would surpass all the other angels in brilliance, splendor, and authority. This angel would be appointed over a third of the angelic host and would lead in praise and worship of the Godhead. He would stand closest to the throne in authority, clothed in shimmering color and wings like no other. This cherub was exquisite in beauty, and his name would be called Lucifer, the son of the bright morning star. God's heavenly creations were complete. Lucifer and all the sons of God worshipped and shouted for joy upon the sea of glass and glistening throne of God. God spoke, calling forth his crowned cherub and chief archangels. Lucifer, thy bright and morning star, it is you who have been elected over a third of the stars of heaven as your brethren. Be not wise in your own wisdom, Lucifer, and be not taken over by your exceeding beauty, for you are my creation, created under my authority. Come and take your position at my left-hand side of power. Lucifer was appointed chief of praise, while the 4 of the presence were appointed as guardians of the 4 corners of the throne. Lucifer deliberated the position of Michael over his own, but quelled these thoughts beneath the exquisite beauty and brilliance of himself. Lucifer fervently led the worship of praising of the Most High in choral magnificence. The myriad of angelic voices rejoiced before the sea of glass and throne of glory. 24 winged cherubim and 6 winged seraphim positioned around the throne, chanting, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. Heaven is full of thy glory. 16 winged cherubim flew about praising and glorifying around the throne of God. The head of days thought it time to create for himself his most magnificent creation. He would create an expanse of space, time, and dimension for which this new creation would dwell.
In the beginning there was nothing, the primordial void. Then from within the nothingness there was the Word, and the Word was. Let there be light. So it was, and the Lord looked back upon what he had done and said, It is good.
The balance of the Trinity. Life gives way to the path of good and evil that leads to free will that is balanced by the effect of human emotion. Power defines the path between good and evil that is driven by human emotion and is made possible through free will. Wisdom gives way to the understanding of human emotion that leads to the enlightenment between good and evil but can only be reached through free will. Professor Lucifer B.M. Personal Medical Journal, the 20th of December 2022, 1036 hours. Project Dark Eon. So I was sitting here going over the rough sketches of an undiscovered mapped out region of the body when it dawned on me that I have seen this particular biological function as a part of the dietary needs of Subject Zero. I thought it was the muscle tissue itself that it was feeding off of, but I was incorrect. The muscle tissues are a storage vessel and a filtration regulator that houses the processing function of the body's production and filtering the biochemical stimulants and other various chemicals the body produces naturally. It filters and tapers off the amount needed through the muscle fibers, and that is what these creatures nourish themselves from, not the muscle but their neurochemicals within the muscle fibers, and they need it because of the rapid growth process they undergo. That high speed of a development caused by the super soldier formula used by the US military in the 1980s during their Project Blue Book operations under a file labeled Stargate and in a file under Project Indigo Starseed. These are names of projects I remember being brought up in other associated research and reference files connected to this project's focus. It requires them to consume a massive intake of neurochemicals to compensate for their fast metabolic rate. It is assumed that the super soldier enhanced metabolism used in the project codenamed Indigo Starseed was the cause of this. Let me break down some earlier notes on this subject. The earliest known record that can be associated to this enigma, dating back to the 3TD kingdom before the cataclysm that was associated to the tier of Gaia, when the kingdom still flourished. There was the first recorded account of this character. It was during this time on Earth that the island of Lemuria was here, and in their records lay a description of this entity and some details to its origin. The Lemurian colony was an early, evolutionary class of the ones we now know as the Palladians and the Draconians, but at this time they still resembled each other very closely. The Great War between them was just beginning to end, and they lived here on Earth by the truce that was agreed upon at that time. Aha. So this is the era that he is from? The Grand Architect, the lead scientists who was in charge of the Lemurian excavation crew. He designed the pyramid structures that predate man's ability to build temples. Lemuria was a colonization that of both sides living under the peace of that truce. It was at this time the Merkaba, which was what they were called, had a cousin of sorts. Created from the same process as them, as they were genetically engineered drones. The only difference they shared then was their purpose, by which they were designed. One type was made for technical engineering. The other were made for war and conflict. However, it is here we find that they listed having encountered another type of drone model that was amphibious and capable of living beneath the water. They were reptilian in basic chromosome structure, but they had been altered and tampered with, embedded with genetic instructions to basically populate, adapt, and overwhelm through large numbers entire planets. Once the planet has been completely subjugated, they would set up a basic satellite relay station to search for a coded signal that would provide them with further instructions. A signal decoded only by their cellular data, and so only they were capable of receiving and understanding the signal. To separate them from getting confused with the other Merkaba models, they referred to them as the Merkab or Merman, an amphibious genetic design that they thought may have been unfinished. But it was a part of their genetic design and how they adapted so well and so quickly to their surroundings. I wonder if I could examine the corpse of one of these things to do an autopsy and try to discern whether or not they are acidic as well. With that fast of a metabolism, cellular decay would be accelerated to the point where dead tissue could easily and quickly become like staph infection and rot its way through bone and tissue, becoming very hazardous very quickly. So in conclusion, Cthulhu and his brood are genetically engineered and designed Merkab used for invasion of highly volatile and hostile worlds. They can be both amphibious or surface-dwelling. They can be applied from a microbacterial state and developed into an indigenous form of life suited to the atmospheric level of the world they're on. They are highly reproductive and can reproduce asexually if necessary, and even in a hive-mind bacterial state they still can function on a basic survival instinct type method. The bacterial adaptation is the first phase. The second phase is the replicant stage, and the third stage is its invasion stage, as what you could best describe as its method being that similar to the pod people from Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It is in this phase its description is found within the earliest of human history, as there are the accounts of the Jewish encounters with the twin-faced demon armies, there archaeological accounts of the Russian monolith site in the Steppes Plateau, and even earlier accounts of the fish-head gods from the sky listed in antediluvian lore. It is difficult to differentiate between species based on mankind's records, as their ancestors often labeled anything volatile from beyond their world as a general label of demons, but it's not too difficult, as all that must be done is search for the tales that do not have human-associated or translated origins.
never die.